Okay, very good. All right, guys, here we go. We are going to call the Board of Electrologists and Body Art Practitioners Body Piercing Rules and Qualifications Advisory Committee meeting to order. It is convening at 10:13 a.m. on June 16, 2021 at the Health Licensing Office in Salem, Oregon by MS Teams and conference call. I'll now call roll. Aaron Solomon.
Present.
Seth Dietz.
Present.
Leah Journey.
Present.
Cherish Chainer. Excuse me, that was Cherish Shaner.
I'm present.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record, and if you could raise your hand on MS Teams, and then I will call on you in the order that you raise your hand. For the record, public members calling into the public phone line are asked to email April Fleming at april.fleming@dhsoha.state.or.us and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business, and this meeting is called to order. So, my name is Cynthia Murphy. I'm the Qualification Analyst with the Health Licensing Office. I've been with the office for approximately 25 years. I work with education, training, and examinations. And with me today is Samantha Patnode, and she'll come and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Sammy Patnode. Been here same amount of time as Cynthia, 25 years. I'm the policy analyst for the board specifically, and helped bring the board on into the HLO oversight with Seth, and we're happy to look at everything again. So there you go.
Great. So if I could have each of you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about yourself. Aaron, you want to start that off?
Sure. Excuse me. My name is Aaron Solomon. I own and operate Philadelphia Piercing in Portland, Oregon, Gresham, Oregon. I've been a professional body piercer for 24 years now, and 13 of those being in Oregon. I'm an APP member and have served on the Board of Electrolysis and Body Art and on former rules advisory committees.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Seth, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Seth Dietz, although I think everybody here knows me. I work at a dorm. I've been a piercer there for 11 years. I previously worked on the Board of Body Art Practitioners from 2012 to 17, and here I am again.
Leah, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, I think Leah stepped away. Oh, there she is.
Hi, sorry, I had to have someone bring me my binder. I'm Leah. I work at a dorm. I've been piercing for 12 years, and just recently, I'm very happy to say I joined the Association of Professional Piercers. I'm excited to be here.
Great, thanks. And then Cherish, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the other committee members a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Cherish Shaner. I've been piercing for a little over 8 years. Here, I work at a dorm, and I've been there for a little over a year now. Relatively new addition to Oregon, but really excited to participate in this.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I just want to say the Health Licensing Office and the industry appreciates you putting the time and effort into this committee. We couldn't do it without subject matter experts like yourself, and it is greatly appreciated. And so thank you. Your industry appreciates you, and the Health Licensing Office appreciates you. So I'm going to go over the agenda. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the education and training for body piercing and standard body piercing and specialty body piercing. We're going to talk about the examinations, and then we're going to go into continuing education and safety and infection control, and we can talk about other associated business as well. And then we'll talk about the effect on the public of any changes that we may recommend. And one of the things I want to say to that is any recommendations that this committee comes to agreement on will be presented to the full board to vote on. And then we'll talk about next steps, the rule schedule timeline. Does anybody have any questions about that agenda? No? And did everybody get their packets?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, and before we move forward, since I think I might be the only one on the phone and I can't do the raise my hand feature, should I just kind of wait till the end to make sure that everybody is spoken before I voice any opinion?
No, go ahead, Aaron, and just say, this is Aaron. I have a comment I'd like to make, or, I think we'll be fine as we go through. Since you can't raise your hand, absolutely. And because there's only 4 of us, it's a small committee. Generally, when you get into larger committees, it becomes more difficult, but because it is a small committee, I think we'll be fine.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So, and with the information that I sent you, did everybody have a chance to actually go through that information? And does anybody have any questions about the information that I sent you? No?
This is Aaron Solomon. I have a little bit. Unfortunately, I had to cover a lot of shifts this last week after I got the information, so I haven't had time to go through the binders super thoroughly, but it's all information I'm fairly familiar with.
Okay, and then Cherish, did you have a question or a comment?
No, sorry. I was just saying yes. I've had a chance to go through it. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And one of the things I want to say is, Aaron, this has been presented to the board before, and like you said, you are familiar with it. And we've been talking about this since 2019. So, yeah. So.
Yeah, familiar material.
Yes, very much so. So basically, on the front, the intro letter is on January 1st, 2018, the Board of Electrologists and Body Art Practitioners revised the standard and specialty level 1 training programs, and based on the recommendation from the Rules Advisory Committee, which met several times in 2016, the training programs were initially implemented in January of 2012. And those revisions to the training program included reductions to the number of hours required within each program, and moving cheek piercing requirements which were initially in the standard body piercing program to the specialty level 1 training program. And then at the February 25th, 2019 board meeting, the board requested that we put together an education program an education committee to look at this training again and look at combining the specialty level 1 and 2 training programs, and look at reducing the hours for the standard body piercing training program. Let's see. So the chart is very important at the bottom of this memo, and basically what this tells you is for standard body piercing, in 2012, when this was initially implemented, there were a total of 1,150 hours, 250 theory hours, and 900 practical hours with 400 procedures. And then under B in 2018, we reduced the hours to 750 total. Theory hours stayed the same at 250. Practical hours reduced to 500, and the procedures reduced to 300. So during the last RAC meetings and at several of the board meetings, there was discussion in regards to alternates of reduction. So I have put under C and D, under tab 1, as we go through the book, the first alternate, which would be a reduction of total hours to 575, or for the second alternate to 345, and theory hours to reduce it to 125 or 75 under the second alternate. Practical hours being reduced to 450 under the first alternate, or reduced to 270 under the second alternate. And then reducing the procedures to 200 under the first alternate, or 120 under the second alternate. Then under specialty 1, it shows you in 2012 that there were 36 total hours, 36 procedures, 36 practical hours and 36 procedures. Those were reduced in 2018 to 26, and the practical hours and the procedures were also reduced to 26. We only have one alternate suggestion on this, to reduce the total hours to 20, the practical hours to 20, and the procedures to 20 on specialty level 1. And then specialty level 2, it started out in 2012 at 26 with 26 practical hours and procedures, and then in 2018 it was reduced to 16 for the total practical and procedures. And there's a first alternate that was discussed of reducing it down to 15. So does anybody have any comments about that information specifically? No? Okay.
So this is Seth. Seems like, the trend here over the past few years has been come on strong and then reduce until we find a comfortable level. It seems to be the trend with regulations, at least in my experience. And I think that's a fairly smart approach, and gradually backing off slowly. The second options that you had briefly discussed there seems like it's dropping a considerable amount, though. And that is a little cause for concern. I mean, I don't know if that's an adequate amount,
So Seth, thank you for that comment. And one of the things that I would like to say is during the July 8th, 2019 board meeting, the board did discuss the reduction of those standard body piercing hours, and there was a lot of hesitation in actually reducing those. I could go down the list of all of the board members at that time, and I think the reason that they brought it back to this committee is because we have received so many comments and concerns in regards to the training, getting the training, somebody to train them, and of course then also again the hours being too high, and schools can't open because it's not feasible for somebody to have a school and teach this many hours, and the price that it would cost to open that school, it wouldn't be feasible for them to do so. So again, even though the board was hesitant at the reduction of these standard hours, they did want to bring it to this committee for discussion.
Understandable. My thing is, though, that these regulations were not instituted to create business. They were instituted to create standard training, And I mean, while I understand the catch-22 of that, of not being able to open up a school, I don't know if it is this committee's job or responsibility to make that happen for them. Just saying. I mean, our job is to make sure that we devise a training program that is, basically, what's needed to become a piercer efficiently, not what's good for business necessarily. So, I definitely think that it might be worth reducing the hours a bit and the training requirements a little bit, because it has been pretty. We at Adorn are apprentice, we have an apprentice at our studio right now, and I'm watching him go through this, and it's pretty intense, So I'm not necessarily opposed to reducing some of these hours and procedures and whatnot, but I'm real hesitant to jump real low real quick.
Okay.
Personally. That's just my opinion though. And there's two different versions, right? That's the one.
Yes. So under tab 1, tab C is the first alternate, and D, which are summarized on the front. But if you want to look at, let's see, let me go to B and C. Excuse me, C and D.
So currently, which tab is the current regulation?
Oh, the current ones are, for standard body piercing, are 1B.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And if you can't see me on the screen, it's because I'm opening my book up here to the right.
Okay.
And this is Aaron Solomon. Anytime that it's my turn, since I'm not on the MS team, just let me know, because I definitely have some input as well.
Perfect, Aaron. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I agree with a lot of Steph's points. And I was actually part of the board when the reduction of hours was originally suggested, and the original suggestion was basically to cut the hours in half, which we kind of as a board, just I think about everybody agreed on this, that slashing it in half is a little much, especially for that standard phase of knowledge and training to be a body piercer. And essentially the compromise that we came up with was kind of 25% instead of 50% on the hours. And really, and also I have actually apprenticed somebody under the original hours, so it's not impossible to do, and like Seth said, it is very intensive. Even under the current hours, it's pretty intensive, and honestly, as it should be, because as Seth pointed out, we're kind of here to make sure that Oregonians are safe when they're getting body piercings. It's really kind of first and foremost in our windshield there when we're looking straight ahead, and also, honestly, you need, especially for that standard, you need that really solid, just granite base of knowledge to not only keep the public safe, but honestly to keep the practitioners themselves safe. Because if you don't have a lot of training, needle sticks are a thing. They're pretty easy to come by as a body piercer, and that's a big health risk, and knowing how to properly, process tools and handle biohazard and even wash your hands. It's a big health risk to obviously the public and the practitioners themselves if they don't really have that just extremely solid knowledge base. So my input as far as reducing any hours, I could see a little bit here or there, or refine it as we have in the past, by doing things like, being able to move things that, like cheek piercings, and not really every practitioner even would want to offer into a specialty and doing things like being able to train standard and specialty concurrently. As far as the reduction on specialty hours, I could see it a little bit more, just because, like I said, if we're keeping just that really, really solid base knowledge, even though obviously specialty is specialty for a reason, you have to have special training for certain piercings that you want to be a little more intensive than the more broad ones you're doing kind of day in, day out, and usually the specialty ones are done a little less often. So you do want to have that specialty focus and training on those for sure. But, after you have that extremely solid base knowledge, then it's not hard to apply that to something different. If you're a carpenter and you're used to using one method, you slightly adapt it to another method, kind of same principle, I guess, is what I'm saying. My input would be that I thought that kind of the reduction that we did, in my opinion, was definitely kind of like, I don't know, almost kind of safe minimum. If we wanted to shave off just a little bit, I feel like kind of hacking down the amount of procedures and hacking down the amount of hours is that's too much. It might kind of like, kind of encourage more kind of rushed apprenticeships, or not necessarily rushed apprenticeships, but maybe somebody finishing their training and not having all the knowledge they need to be able to go forward just really safely in a really consistent manner. My input as far as that would go, like I said, I really like the way that the standard is right now. I don't think a lot should change about it, but as far as the specialty, maybe the slight reductions. And there you go. Sorry, I'm done with my rant.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. And that's one thing that both you and Seth pointed out. It really is public protection. That's what we're about. It's to ensure that the individual has the minimum competence to protect the public moving forward in their licensing. Megan, or Cherish, did you want to make any comments in regards to the training?
This is Cherish. I honestly agree with what's already been said. If we have a strong basis, basically, with the standard body piercing hours being where they're at, or even very gently shave down procedures and things like that, but not a lot. I think the second alternative, D, is a bit too low, significantly too low. But I think that if there's a strong basis, then a reduction in the specialty level training would make a little bit more sense. But if there's going to be a reduction in the standard, then I don't know that would be beneficial to clients, to Oregonians getting piercings, or beneficial to piercers. As well, just briefly touching on the concerns around it currently being difficult or unattainable to have a piercing school. I realize that it would be probably done fairly differently here because our laws are much tighter. But I have seen a piercing school in operation in Colorado, and it did lead to a fair bit of damage to people receiving piercings from folks who went through a shorter training course with less focused attention. So I think that it really is important that people have that basis with that focused attention. If that means it's difficult to have a school, I don't know that that's a bad thing when it comes to everybody's safety.
Okay. Thank you. And then Leah, did you want to make any comments?
I'm pretty in line with everybody else. Am I still muted? Okay, cool. Sorry. I'm pretty in line with everybody else. I think a slight reduction in the specialty might help, but a big reduction might be a little kind of towing the line between dangerous and making it too easy, or not too easy to get licensed, but before somebody has a strong understanding of what they're doing. And I completely agree with Cherish, because I also worked in Colorado, and I've seen lots of bad come from the piercing school there. I think that it can help as a tool to understanding piercing, but from what I've seen of piercing schools, they're helpful along the way, but could sometimes not produce a competent piercer by the end of the school. But again, Oregon's totally different than Colorado in licensing and all of that stuff. So I'm only speaking from what I know as far as that goes. When I hear piercing school, I get a little nervous about that type of stuff, just because working with a mentor and getting to see all of the things and glean the knowledge that they know can be a lot different than being in a classroom setting and just turn and burn. This is how you do a piercing. Now you've done one. Now you're good. But I don't know if I don't know the structure of the school here. So again, just speaking from what I know from Colorado. To cruise back on point, I agree with everybody else as far as a slight reduction, but not a ton.
Okay, so just an FYI, there is within the rule the ability for a school to operate under the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, but unfortunately no one has opened a school. And like I had said earlier, in regards to why, not feasible to do so, but again, with what Seth said, it's not about the feasibility of being able to open a business, it's about the public safety. So one of the things I wanted to also point out to you is we have, Sammy Patnode and I have discussed some options around these training programs, and one of the things that we do with the Board of Cosmetology is they have their standard education that they go through, and then they have specialties, like for example dermaplaning that they do. And one of the things that we thought that may be helpful is, instead of having a specialty 1 and a specialty 2 piercing license, that you have a standardized training program, and then within the rule, if you want to perform those specialty piercings, that you go through an individual and get the specific training for that piercing and then have that documented. And so, for example, if you wanted, you could pick any of the specialties, you would go to that individual, the person who has, and we could create criteria for that. For example, if you want to go to Seth, for example, Seth has to have a minimum of 2 years of experience, and he has to have done so many, or it's just an option for us to look at, and then you keep that documentation on file for 2 years or 5 years, whatever we could recommend, and then you would completely eliminate the specialties because of the difficulty in getting especially the specialty 2s, and the number of trainers that are willing to actually train you for a program. So you would be able to just contact an individual who's willing to provide that specific body piercing training to you. And I can show you an example. I'm going to share a screen. And hang on just a second, let me share this screen. Oops, hang on just a second.
That way. It's being moved that way. I did. No. Oh, okay.
I'm trying to share this content. Hang on just a second.
Thank you.
And Sammy's adjusting my mic. I'm sorry, what?
So this is Aaron, since I don't have this grid, I just wanted to make sure that I kind of understood what you were suggesting. Basically, to not require specialty training from somebody who's a state-recognized trainer, but somebody who has the license Is that what kind of was being suggested, or?
I'm sorry, will you repeat that again, Aaron?
No problem. Basically, because unfortunately I'm not on the screen because my computer's too old apparently, but what I was kind of getting the gist of what you were saying, kind of mirroring what they do in cosmetology, that somebody could get training essentially for specialty piercings from someone who holds the specialty license but is not necessarily having to be a state recognized trainer in specialty. Is that what was being suggested?
Well, no, because the specialties would go away. So basically what we would do is we would say, as of this date, you as a specialty level 1 and level 2 piercer are authorized to perform all of the things that you were trained for. So if I came in and I just completed my standard and I wanted to do specialties, then I would contact somebody who had education and experience in the specialties, and then you would provide me that training, and you and I would document it. You, Aaron Solomon, provide Cynthia Murphy with this training on such and such a date. I qualify to provide this piercing because I have performed 5 years worth of so-and-sos. And I've been licensed for 5 years.
I have questions. This is Seth. I don't know who has a microphone on, but it's feeding back pretty bad.
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, anyway. So, are you saying that nobody, to do a specialty piercing, you just have to go to somebody that has had experience, but how does somebody know who has experience and who doesn't? So that's the first question I have. Like, somebody that doesn't have any experience in specialty piercings, how do they seek out somebody that does, first of all? And how do they actually know if they're qualified to be able to do those piercings efficiently and safely?
You would decide what that looks like.
So Seth, you would decide what that would look like.
2 years of experience.
So 2 years of experience, you have 25 procedures performed, or maybe not that many, but you know what I mean? In the sense of, you have to create standard licensing requirements. I have 5 years of experience doing these types of piercings. I've not gotten any complaints. That type of thing.
So if the specialty licenses go away entirely, does that mean as soon as somebody passes their basic body piercing examination, that they're automatically allowed to do these particularly advanced piercings?
No, you would list all the specialty level 1s off in rule. So for example, can you see the document I'm sharing?
Yes.
So that says chemical peels. So what we would do is you would list out a standard body piercer is prohibited from performing, let me get a name, the female through the urethra, without getting specific training, and then we would specify what that training looked like in regards to, from an individual who has 5 years of experience in performing this amount. And no, Sammy's shaking her head. She feels
Just
like
how
that's
long?
Oh, just how long? Sammy says just how long? 5 years of experience and performing these types of procedures. And so this rule that I'm sharing, and Aaron, you can't see it, so basically what it says is just, it lists off and it says they're prohibited from doing it, and which would be specified in your rule unless they have the specific training from an individual as deemed qualified, and then you would list that qualification.
Gotcha. So this is Aaron again, just so I understand, because I'll be advanced if we'll read what y'all have up on the screen. Essentially, some kind of documented assertion from someone who is kind of recognized as being qualified, to impart the knowledge, essentially, and then you attest to that and kind of provide some type of documentation to OHLO that you have completed this training, and then essentially you're allowed to do this piercing. We do this with each specific procedure.
Only the ones that you would specify in the specialty levels that you want listed within the rule. And no, it wouldn't be submitted to the health licensing office. You would maintain that documentation on file for a specified amount of time as determined by, and I believe we have standards, which is 2 years, sometimes 3 years, dependent. And what I have on the screen right now, it says the training or education obtained from an esthetician or licensed healthcare provider with experience providing, and this one says chemical peels, you could put your specific piercing there. And it must include the verification of the content and hours, proof of the education and training received by the licensed, and you could specify the standard or body piercer with specified experience, and records the required education and training must be kept for as long as the esthetician provides very superficial or whatever superficial peels, and let's see, and they must fully comply with the required education and training and use them in a manner intended. And there's a lot of information, but Sammy would be writing a rule with you guys that's basically said you have to have the training, it has to be done by this individual, and you have to maintain proof for this amount of time, and the training has to be from somebody who has X amount of years of experience doing this specific type of procedure.
This is Seth. To me, I don't know. This seems. I mean, I understand, the want and need to kind of simplify things because it is sort of complicated at the moment. But at the same time, it just seems like we're putting so much faith in people, telling the truth. There's no, I mean, what's the proof of education and training received? Is it just an attestment, or are they just attesting to the fact they have that? There's no documentation, besides a written statement. I don't know, it just seems, how does somebody approve who is allowed to train, I don't think that number of years experience in an industry necessarily qualifies somebody to teach somebody how to perform a particular, piercing maybe they're not familiar with, if that makes sense. I've seen a lot of piercers out there that have been piercing for 5 to 10 years that, aren't super qualified on certain advanced piercings out there. And, I just want to make sure that those people that don't have a lot of experience aren't automatically allowed to train people who are also unexperienced, It just seems like a perpetual downward cycle. I don't know. Just a question.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Megan, or Leah, excuse me, you had a comment? Oops, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. So I don't know. I feel like this is just a specialty license under a different name. You're still getting certified, you're still getting trained in some way. So I feel like it's just kind of rearranging titles. You still have to see somebody who knows what they're doing. But in this way, it's now from a list of people that you guys have chosen rather than a broader scope of people. So in some ways it might not be to the benefit. If there's a great piercer who knows what they're doing, who works with somebody who's trying to get specialty 1 license, but they're not on this list, then that's another piercer who's not able to, or doesn't have immediate access to somebody who could teach them. So it almost feels like, one, a roadblock, but also there's still going to be some sort of certification that you get, and there's still some sort of passing a process, which is just a specialty 1 license anyway. So while I feel like it's an interesting concept and maybe the root of a good idea, I'm not sure if it is really going to eliminate the specialty licenses. I feel like it's just changing a title of them, or a route of them rather.
I kind of also that's kind of also what I was visualizing too, actually, just like we had said. This sort of feels like specialty license renamed. I mean, yeah. So you're saying that once they have that training, they don't need a license to be able to actually prove to the public that they have that training? Is that my understanding? Just kind of faith-based?
Well, in a sense, you wouldn't have the specialty license for 1 and 2. You would get your standard basic education, and then anything you want to do above and beyond that, you would have to go to that individual, who meets the qualifications that you determine, and then maintain that documentation on file. And so you are correct in the sense that you would not have a license to show that you are qualified for those specialties, but you would have documentation from an individual who had minimum experience as determined by the board.
Okay. So what about a person like me, for instance, that has been a piercer for 16 years and is, licensed in specialty level 2? I don't have anybody that I have that training under. So if this rule gets revised and then my license goes down to only a basic body piercing license, which is fine. I don't have an ego about that or anything. But am I going to have to go find training, by somebody?
No.
So there's there would be like a grandfather clause or something?
Yes, what we would do is we would individualize letters to the individuals who have the specialty piercings, and note that you meet the minimum qualifications to provide these piercings. So that is your documentation. That would be yours, okay, or the individuals that hold those licenses.
Okay. So my next question is, somebody that is searching out that education, how is that person supposed to find a trainer, somebody that is qualified? I mean, because the state's not going to keep an active documentation of who's done what piercings, So I'm sure the office will get calls like, who can I go to find? Who can I go to train under? And you're like, I don't know.
Well, what we do is we actually put it in the rule, and then we put the onus on the individual looking for the training, and we say. Okay. You need to contact your, a local piercing facility and talk to individuals that are there to see if they're willing to take you on as, to provide this training to you.
Okay. But how does the trainee know the trainer is actually legit and actually has done those procedures and knows what they're doing? I mean, I don't know, it just seems like it's a lot of faith-based, working here. I don't know.
And in a sense you are correct, Seth, because we're going to specify that you have, or you guys would specify, what your recommendation is in regards to years of experience and ensuring that, yes, trusting in the sense that I have done so many of X piercings, and I am able to, based on what the rule says, have 5 years of experience and multiple, times performed X, so I can now teach you.
Okay.
This is Sherry. Can I just ask a quick question? I'm so sorry, did I interrupt?
No.
And just to see if I'm understanding it, it sounds like we would be able to structure or at least make suggestions on what the structure would be for those qualifications. But it sounds like what you're talking about is, let's say that we suggest that the qualification be that the person has been performing whatever that individual piercing is for a set amount of time, and performing it well and safely, and then they would be a person that you could go to for, basically it sounds like this would be like a modifier added to the licensing, or like a certification that would be added to the licensing. So like you have the standard body piercing license with the modifier of also has done the proper training for this particular piercing, and then also for this particular piercing or set of piercing. So instead of specialty level 1 and specialty level 2 licensing, you could pick and choose which individual piercing you wanted to have as a modifier to your license. Is that what is being suggested?
It wouldn't be a modifier to the license, but yes, you are correct in the sense that you can choose as a standard body piercing license holder to only do X and Y and Z, and you wouldn't have to do any of the others. So you could choose specifically to seek out an individual who will provide you training for X, Y, and Z, and not the A, B's, and C's.
So instead of like a list of piercings that are included as specialty level 1, you have to get all of them for that licensing. It would instead be, let's say I only wanted to do scrotal piercings and labia piercings. I could only get those two, like specifically, instead of having to go through the entirety of the specialty level 1 and the entirety of the specialty level 2?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. And from there, there's flexibility to determine what would be the criteria for a person to meet to be qualified to train for those specific piercings. Right?
Yes, you are correct. You could determine via number of years of experience or so many procedures completed, or when you're doing this so many years of or so many procedures completed, you're I think putting that in a rule is not recommended. However, you can specify in the rule that you have to have this many years of experience doing this types of procedures in order to train somebody. So then what would happen is if there was a complaint or an investigation, we would come to you and say, and we would get your documentation from you, and you would say, I was trained by such and such, and this is how I was trained, and that individual, we could look at the number of years of experience that individual had to determine, and there would be an investigation, but that would be the paper trail in the sense.
What's the current requirement for someone to be able to train for specialty level 1 and specialty level 2? Like, is it currently that flexible, or is there a little more rigidity to it?
There is more rigidity to it. And let me look at how long, let me see. Sammy, can you look at specific rule and tell me what the time frame is for them to be allowed to train? I don't have that off the top of my head. I apologize.
Train who?
As a specialty level 1, do they have to have 2 years? Is it 2 years of experience in order to train?
Oh,
Hang on just a second, we're gonna look it up in the rule, and I apologize, I don't have that.
I believe so.
I believe it is 2 years of experience.
It's wrought in the print.
So then that could stay the same, right? It could still be they have 2 years of experience performing that particular piercing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you. I think I understand.
This is Aaron Solomon. Can I give a little bit of input?
Doesn't have a requirement.
Yes, go ahead, Aaron.
Cool. I definitely agree with Seth as far as on the point of working by the honor system, unfortunately, us as human beings are not the most honorable a lot of the times. So that is one concern about this method. My other kind of main concern is at the very minimum, if something like this goes forward, what should be required is the random audit, kind of like what's done with continued education that's required for licensing. That's gotta be a very, very, very strict minimum. Also, I feel like it's gonna have to be extremely detailed as far as what makes somebody qualified, you know, as we were just discussing earlier, to be able to give somebody that training that they could have that on file. I don't know if we're just limiting this to licensed Oregon body piercers, because they're obviously worldwide. There are thousands of really, you know, great body piercers, or at least hundreds. And even the most, what I would consider the most educated, experienced people to do this type of training in our industry, there's very little, because our industry is so young, actual kind of accreditation and proof for even the most experienced among us that they really kind of are, you know, kind of, I don't know, in an official capacity on paper in the record that they are, you know, a professional educator. There's very, very few of those folks out there. So I could definitely see maybe, and I'm all for flexibility in making things work in the real world. I'm a huge proponent of that for sure. But I just, once again, just kind of all the way back full circle to just making sure that we don't get kind of an influx of folks that are doing stuff that's outside of the scope of what they should be doing, and worst case scenario, really injuring some Oregonians' genitals is a not fun prospect to think about, you know?
So one of the things that you said, Aaron, which is true, is this would open the doors for training from individuals. Like, for example, if I knew somebody in California that was just, you know, this amazing piercer that I wanted to get this training from, that's something that you could put in the criteria that doesn't have to specifically be an Oregon licensed individual. It could be somebody from another state that has experience and did the minimum of 5 years experience or 2 years or whatever the committee decided. So then you wouldn't have to go through an Oregon trainer to get that specialty level piercing. Hey, you guys, can I put you on hold for just a minute? I need to check something. I'm gonna mute and take off my my video. Give me 2 seconds, okay? Thank you.
Okay.